find something, a problem, find a problem that interests you and where there's not a settled answer. And so you can have a topic that you want to really explore. And I tell my students, you become an expert on this. What about gambling? What about AI in sports? What about conference realignment? What about NIL? And
I love the fact that you mentioned identifying an area that's not settled. You want to write a piece that explore something new, offer something new, contribute something new. And so one way to do that, that I've used in my writing is do a lot of reading of law review articles. And you read law review articles and you see in there somewhere on some page where it says, X is beyond the scope of this article. And then you go and look what that X question is. And it's usually a pretty big question that they just don't have time or space to tackle in that piece. And then you can use that as, the genesis of what you want to talk about. And so I think that's how you can identify if it's otherwise challenging to figure out kind of what's not settled or something to be talked about.
I mean, I look at what is topical, right? What is topical, right? Look, NIL is topical, transgender issues is topical. Then I look to see what's traditional, right? CBA, antitrust, IP, that's always traditional stuff. And then I get into what's out of the ordinary. And this is what's different, what's not working right now or is working right now. So I kind of my approach is to look at those three things: what is topical, what is traditional, and then what is out of the ordinary, and then take and find something within that. NIL, right? Everybody talks about NIL. Well, what about NIL? Is it the contract issues involved with NIL? Is it the fact that international student athletes may or may not be able to benefit from NIL?
First of all, I think one can be objective and at the same time make an argument. So you objectively lay out everything and then you make an argument, which is different from making an argument when you've not provided the foundation. But with that said, Lee, I think I can understand the student's desire to kind of think broadly about what reception they'll get if they write something. But at the same time, I think there's something to be said about being courageous and speaking with truth and offering your voice. And maybe you take the foot off the gas. So I think there is some line walking, but I think speaking your truth is important, both because what are we doing if we're not doing that, but also because I think your writing is going to come across as more reflective of you and maybe more genuine.
And think about what impact do you want to have with this? What's the purpose of spending time writing about this, and what change would you like to see? And it doesn't have to be an earth-shattering proposal. It could be a modest proposal. And so if you're not ready to take on the entire machine, find some. So with NIL, maybe there should be some limitations, guardrails, addressing the Title IX concerns, for example, or whatever your topic is. But don't be afraid of using your voice as well.
Jeremy said, there was about 20 years ago, I wrote a paper about Fourth Amendment issues and entering stadiums, and I'm pretty liberal on that aspect. But I was hired by an NFL team after that because they wanted to make sure that what they were doing was within the confines of the Constitution. So, even though they had a different point of view on it, there was the NFL mandate for the pat downs that was put into place. They wanted to make sure that what they were doing was still legal. So, it did lead to opportunities, even though my paper was a little bit left in what the NFL's position was at that time. So, don't be afraid, because it could open doors to other opportunities. Know the law. I mean, seriously, if you're going to write about a legal issue, know the law and research that legal issue, that law, to make sure what you're writing about is true. I got a paper this year. The student made an argument, great, but well-written paper, making an argument that the NFL is a single entity. mention American Needle. There's some law in this area. We really need, as part of our job as lawyers and as academics, is to do that research and dive in and find out that issue and make sure that what we're writing about hasn't already been written about or hasn't already been decided by a higher court. So
to the extent you can go to primary sources, so the general layout is to get an idea of the topic you're looking through, what's happening in the news. So your sports, where you get your media for sports updates, and the SLA website. There's a number of podcasts and general news outlets, general search engines. But in terms of following the cases that you want to, so for example, if you're looking at the employee litigation that's happening in college sports, have a tracker for those cases that are happening. Or if you're following the live golf developments, you want to track those specifically and look at the primary documents, look at the complaint and the legal filings that are happening, look at the collective bargaining agreement, rather than just always relying on someone else's blog that's not verified. There's so much that's not verified. If you actually get a law review article or something that's gone through that fact checking process, that's more persuasive authority. Of course, the court decisions as well would be good places to start. So, start broadly and then look at how authoritative those and reliable those sources would be. Caution
against, first of all, Wikipedia, while it has its benefits, is not viewed as a robust source for a citation in law review article. And, there are a lot of, when the three of us who are on this panel were coming up as scholars, there was not so much content out there. I mean, there are so many blogs, there's so many perspectives that are offered now. It's hard to say whether they are sources that are legitimate. I've seen people cite to spoof sources like onion type sources that are seeking to be farcical, but they cite to them because they think maybe they're legitimate. So just make sure it's a legitimate source. And one thing you can do to do that is double check your source with another source to ensure that you're using legitimate sources. And then I would say, of course, Lexis and Westlaw, those standard resources you want to use. But again, and I'm a big fan, I'll talk maybe later about how important it is to read. I find that the best writers, whether it's novelists or anything else, in this case, a lot of the authors are avid readers. They've read a lot. And so I encourage you to read, and through reading, you will get a sense of the sources that are cited by others in the sports realm, and then those can be sources that keep coming.